So as we look at these 6 characteristics of all living things, these are the 6 characteristics that all living things share. You went over this, we went over this yesterday. You read about it in the textbook, and now what I'd like you to do today is to look at this, and for each one of these, make sure that it makes sense. So cellular organization, you know, that kind of makes sense, but if you just say cellular organization, I don't know exactly what you're talking about. So if we were to put that in terms of what do all living things have, what could you say for cellular organization? Yes. So what I want you to add to your notes for cellular organization is that all living things are made of one or more cells. That's what you need to remember. All living things are made of one or more cells. And I don't even care if you remember cellular organization, because I think that's a little bit confusing. All living things are made of cells. The smallest living things are one cell, and then multicellular things like you and me are made of trillions of cells. We know that we're made of trillions of cells because we have hair and skin and muscles and digestive system and things like that. A single-celled creature is very tiny and very simple. Questions on all things are made of cells? Okay. Then the second one, and we might have talked about this one yesterday, chemicals of life. And again, chemicals of life. What exactly does that mean? What are the chemicals of life? Anybody remember? Yes. Yes, carbohydrates. What else? Yes. Lipids, also known as fats. Proteins. Okay. So for this one again, all living things are made of the same chemicals. And these chemicals include carbohydrates, fats. The textbook says lipids, but you can just say fats. It's the same thing, but you might not remember lipids. You'll remember carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and water. And all living things have DNA. And so when you look at this, you look at that, and that's the nutrients that makes up foods, right? Carbohydrates, fats, proteins, water. Because what we eat helps us build and grow more cells. And all living things have DNA. Now, one of the things you find here in the first couple of weeks of this class is we have to learn a whole bunch of things at one time. So we said all living things are made of cells, but we haven't talked yet about what cells are. Next week and the week after, we're going to talk about what is a cell. All living things have DNA. We haven't talked yet about what DNA actually is. We'll do that in a couple weeks, actually towards the end of the quarter. Who knows just a little bit, what does DNA do? Why is it important? Anybody? Yeah, it tells who you are. It has the directions for you. All of your cells have DNA in chromosomes that tell the cells what to do, and that has the directions to make you, you. And that is true of all living things have DNA. That's right. You can tell things about, you can identify people by DNA if you have other DNA samples to compare it to. Okay, so those are probably the trickiest ones. The next of the 6 characteristics, energy use. All living things need energy. They have to have an energy source. And how do living things get energy? For instance, animals. How do animals get their energy? How do you get your energy? Food, yeah. So for animals, so you can say, for example, for animals, we eat food. And in fact, it's a little confusing, but the fact that we breathe oxygen helps us get energy out of food. And I put that there because when we talked about, when we were brainstorming the 6 characteristics, a lot of people said, well, living things breathe. It's actually tied into getting energy. And if you're a plant, how do you get your energy? Yeah. Yeah, plants get their energy from the sun. They do photosynthesis, and use that to make their food. So all living things need an energy source. Respond to surroundings. That's pretty straightforward. All living things are able to react to their environment. Things like running away from danger, searching for food. Plants will grow to the sunlight. Their roots grow towards the ground, grow into the ground and into water. Questions on responding to surroundings? Pretty straightforward. Growth and development. All living things have a life cycle. They don't just get bigger, but they're born, they mature, they die. You know, think about things like a grasshopper or a chicken. They start as an egg. You've got the baby, grows into an adult. So all living things have a life cycle. And then the last one, all living things reproduce. All living things are able to make more of their own species. Because otherwise, once those living things die, that would be it. So all living things have some way to reproduce. It could be laying eggs. It could be live birth. Plants make seeds. Some plants, you can break off part of the plant to make another plant. Single-celled organisms basically split in two and you have two things. All right, let's now take a look at the assignment I just gave you on this pink sheet. You need to hold on to this pink sheet because you will turn this in with your life form. And as you can see, this will be used kind of as a grading rubric. It has all of the expectations on it. Now we're going to work on it today in class, which is Wednesday. You'll have some time on Thursday and Friday to work on it as well. And it says do Friday, but why don't after the Friday add Friday, September 13th. Due by Friday, September 13th. We're going to work on it in class this week. I don't like assigning homework over the weekend. If you get it done by Friday, turn it in. Awesome. If you don't get it done, you can turn it in as late as next Friday, but we're not going to have a lot of time to work on it next week because we're going to move on to some other things. Okay? So let's go over the parts of the assignment here, and then I will show you some examples that kids have done in previous years. So using what you've learned about the characteristics and needs of living things and the scientific naming system, and we actually put a question mark here. We may go over this next week, but we haven't done this part yet, so don't worry about that yet. You'll show how a living thing you know of or you invent demonstrates these characteristics. So if you look at this here, you're going to be drawing a picture or printing up a picture or cutting and pasting a picture. Is it made of cells? So it, of course, has to have these 6 things, but then you'll explain. So made of cells, of course it is. Is it single-celled or multicellular? And when it says tell the types of cells, that means like, does it have feathers, or describe its skin, or it has a really good nervous system, something like that, okay? I know we haven't learned a lot about that yet. Sense and respond to environment. How does it sense the environment? How does it use its 5 senses? Or does it not have 5 senses? Maybe it has 6. Maybe it has 2. How does it deal with heat, cold, rain, all those sorts of things? Reproduce. Does it clone? Does it make seeds? Does it lay eggs? How often? How long does it live? Actually, how long does it live? We can put in growth and development. Made of similar chemicals. Okay, this, again, all living things are made of proteins, carbohydrates, fats, water, and has DNA. So you can say this living thing, of course, is made of proteins, carbohydrates, fats, but here's a good place where you can describe what it looks like. Okay? Uses energy. Where does your organism get its energy from? What does it eat? Does it do photosynthesis? Does it absorb energy from the sun? That sort of thing. And then growth and development. How long does it live? What's its life cycle? Do the parents raise the young, or are they born and just start out on their own? And then, yes, you're going to do this by yourself. I'll show you some examples, but you'll be able to help each other out if you want to. Pictures of your life form. And again, I'll show you some examples. Some people literally cut pictures out of the magazine and cut and paste. Some people like to do computer manipulation of pictures, or you can draw it. Bacteria, plant, animal. Again, I'll show you some examples. Or if you don't like the creative stuff, if the creative stuff just makes you frustrated, you can actually model it on a real animal and the real animal's ecosystem. And I'll show you an example of that. Name and classification. And again, you can put a little star here. We'll talk about this a little bit next week. We'll talk about scientific naming and Greek and Latin roots. So don't worry about this yet. And then habitat, it doesn't have to be a pond habitat, but you're going to talk about where does it get food, water, and shelter. And this is going to tie back into the other parts too, because you're going to talk about how is it reacting to its environment. Yeah, don't worry about this as much. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit next week, but mostly where is it getting food, water, and shelter? How is it staying alive? I'm going to show you a couple of examples, but that's the basics of that. And we'll have a couple days in class to work on that as well.